as we drive around Oman, even after 3 years, is just how stark the countryside is and how it changes. And then, of course, there's the wildlife. But, as you drive, the mountains change, the rocks change. It still looks incredibly harsh. And you can see in the distance the layer after layer after layer of mountains just receding backwards. It's not something that you get in Australia. And it's sort of, because of the dust in the air from the proximity of the desert, it tends to give it quite a fairy tale look. But anyway, after hitting Ibra, we then turned and headed off towards the Hajar mountains, and about 2 hours after we set out, we were finally able to turn off the beaten road and get onto the dirt, which is what we actually wanted to do. Our initial drive was through a wadi down at the bottom between the mountains, and once again the rocks had just kept changing. Look at the rock wall on the right here. It was quite sheer, but it was an aggregate. And then we left that and started climbing, and once again, as we went up and up, the scenery just kept changing, the style of the rocks, the way things looked. It was just, well, it's not unusual for Oman to see this. And as I said, it kept changing. And every now and then you would see evidence of people farming and living in the mountains. As stark as they look, they're not actually as inhospitable as you would think. You go around the corners and there'll be a flock of sheep or goats across the road. You'll come around a corner and you'll go over the side of the road, and there'll be, deep away in the bottom of the valley, there'll be a small village full of people farming and living their life in the mountains. It's quite remarkable, really. And you can see on the right here, down below, just a typical Omani mountain village. Usual, they're that sort of size. Probably 200 or 300 people live there, and during the week a lot of them will go to Muscat to work, and then in the weekend they'll come home to the village. And then occasionally there's a village on the main road, and as you can see, this one's on the edge of quite a large drop-off, and as much as the village is perched on the edge of a drop, if you look over to the right here, you can see goats lining every piece of shelter they can find on a ledge in the shade, so that they can keep themselves dry. Not dry, well, cool. And as we moved on, once again the landscape changed, and I kept expecting here, it was something like a Glen Ford Western. I kept expecting the bad guys to come charging out of nowhere. And what can we say? Sheep. They're the same the world around. One of them heads across the road, so they've all got to go. Doesn't matter. We can stop. But yeah, the Omani sheep tend to be thinner-legged and a lot smaller. But here's another one of our usual friends on the side of the road, donkeys that you see everywhere. And finally, we came over the top of the mountains, of the Hajar mountains, looking down towards the coast, and off to the right, around the headland that just disappeared from view, is quite a major city called Suwa. But we were headed straight down the hillside here, and we were going to come out near the inlet that you can see towards the left of the screen in the middle, and that was at a place called Kalahut. But in the meantime, we had some fairly steep roads to make our way down, and the spectacular view just so worth it. And then all too soon, we're at the bottom of the Hajar mountains, coming off the dirt, coming back to see station in the little town of Culhut with friendly locals walking down the street. And from Culhut we drove, I would guess, about 20 kilometres down the coast before we stopped at a little beach called Finns for the evening. Finns is lovely little sandy coves and quite close offshore. Well, not even 10 metres offshore. There were small coral reefs with small coral fish swimming around them. So once we set up the camp, we picked up campsites first and argued over who got to go where. We finally got ourselves set up and settled in to enjoy a little bit of swimming in the ocean and some snorkeling. And here you can see a couple of the small reef fish that abound around there, but unfortunately they weren't big and spectacular as you might find in some other places. And Ellie had a bit of a go at trying to catch some dinner for us, but it just wasn't the day for that. And as the sun set, we settled in to have a quiet, relaxing evening, sitting around the fire and not talking the usual sort of stuff that you talk around the fire, before setting off for home the following morning and being lucky enough to see a small herd of gazelle, which I'm told a number of locals have never ever seen before. And then before too long, we're actually coming back into Muscat down the Switchback Road, which gives one of the best views of Muscat Mountains as you come back from the weekend away. It was well worth it.